This training involves the estimating module within the iSite contract management portal. The estimating module can be found on the contract management menu, navigating down to the estimating menu option. Now, when in the estimating module, you'll land at the home page. You'll see a couple different panels on our details page here. What it's showing for me is the 5 most recently viewed estimates that I've looked at. Also, there's a panel below telling me any packages that need to be reviewed. Currently, there's none waiting for review. And then any estimates that are waiting to be published. I can click on any one of these links here and open those estimates if I'd like to, or I can jump over to the specific area that I need to look at, clicking these links. I can view all the estimates by clicking this View All button, and I can create a new estimate by clicking here. You'll also notice in the upper left-hand corner is a context menu for estimating. Here I can do the same types of things. I can view the summary page, which I'm looking at now, view the estimate lists, creating a new estimate. I can review or publish estimates, look at any reports, and then hit any of my utilities. But first I want to start off on how to create a new estimate within iSite. So again, from the summary page, I can go ahead and click the Create New Estimate package here, or I can click Create New Estimate off of my menu here. So in creating an estimate in iSite, we will be walking through a step-by-step wizard. So it'll ask me a series of questions and help guide me through the process of creating the estimate. When I start, you'll see the options that are available to me for this license that I'm working with. Now, your license may be different. You may have fewer or just one of those items. These are all of the available items that are available to you within iSite. To give a description of what these estimate types are, time phase baseline plan is basically your planned information for your specific task. An estimate to complete or forecast is an independent estimate of what it will take to finish a task that I've already planned. So I may have more than one forecast for a specific task over time. Planned contract values just allows me to store what the contract value is for a specific task. So I'm not entering my numbers phased by month. I'm actually just specifying a total. And then finally we have what we call a what-if scenario, or an unpublishable mock-up. That means I can create an estimate that won't have any effect with regards to any of the reporting within iSite. It's just an estimate that I can use to look at some numbers, try a couple different scenarios out without affecting anything else in the system as it sits today. Also, if I have more than one estimate template available to me, those estimate templates will be listed here. iSite will select the most recently used estimate template that you have used. Otherwise, it'll also select the default template that is specified in the admin settings area. So we'll go ahead and click continue. I'm going to go ahead and create a time phase baseline plan. Next thing I need to do is select my tasks. So I can select an existing task if I want to create a plan for an existing task, or if I'm doing this for a new task, I can select undefined task and then specify my task code later. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and select an existing task. So in the example that I'm setting here, I already have a time phase baseline plan for this demo task, and I want to revise the plan. So there might be a change in scope or a mod for this specific task, and that's what I'm going to be doing here. So the next thing I'll do is I'm going to select my source. Now, iSite will be smart enough to figure this out for you. If you already have an estimate that's published within iSite, it will select that estimate as the source already for you. So I have already entered a plan into iSite for this task at a prior date. what it's going to do is it's going to clone that plan, and that's going to be the basis for my new plan here in my estimating tool. If I want to change that, I have the ability to change it down here by selecting a different source. So if I wanted to just create a blank estimate for whatever reason, I can do that. By default, it's going to clone from the most recently published plan for this selected estimate. And if I wanted to, I can even select an estimate for a different task. But I'm happy with the choice that iSite has chosen for me. More often than not, you'll just accept the default that iSite selects for you and move about your business. A couple of the other options I also have here too. When I'm cloning my estimate, I can choose to just clone the structure, which means any labor classes that I've added or any other things will stay with the estimate, but any of the data that was entered will be reset to 0. Also, if there are any changes to burden codes or burden rates or labor rates or whatnot since the time that that estimate was originally created, I can choose to automatically update those burden labor rates as soon as the estimate is created. And then if I also want to perform a rebaseline, which is not normal, which means when I'm done with this plan, it will wipe out the previous plan that was there, and this will be my new original baseline for this task. Again, that's not recommended, and that is controlled by a setting. But I'm just going to go ahead and select the default that iSite gives me. And again, that is best practice using the iSite estimating module, is to select the choice that iSite thinks you should be using in this scenario. Next thing I'll do is I'll select a date range. A couple different ways I can select dates here. I can use a predefined date range if I want. So if I want to go by contract year or calendar year, I have a couple different choices here available to me. When I select that, that'll allow me to select a starting and ending period, and then that'll give me my range. So if I'm going by contract year, I might say contract year 8 through contract year 10. Calendar year, we'll go by years. Award fee period is a custom range that I have set up for this license. These are custom periods that I can choose. But I like contract year. I'll go ahead and select that. I can also choose a custom range. So if I just want to pick a starting or ending financial month, I can do that here. When I select the month, it'll tell me the dates that are defined for that month. Same thing for ending. Or if I want to go by date, I can also go by date as well, and then it'll figure out the starting month and ending month based on the dates that I select. But I'm going to go ahead and just choose my predefined date range. I'll go with, let's just do contract year 9 here for these. And we'll go ahead and continue. Next thing, give me a chance to title my estimate. I can select the default if I want, or if I want to give it a different name, I can do so. I'll call this, well, I'll give it another date here, 2017. If I want to give comments, I can. If I have any custom attributes or extended properties created in iSite, then any of those extended properties will be listed here as additional items that I need to specify values for. So if you have those, will be listed on step 5 under properties in the extended properties area. If you don't have any of those set up, this area will not be visible at all. Next thing is audience. Again, I'm just likely going to accept the default here, but this gives me the chance if I want to lock this estimate down to specific security groups within iSite rather than just all the folks who have access to estimating, I can do that. By default, it's going to select all users. And when it means all users, it just means all users who have access to estimating. So if I don't have access to estimating, I won't have access to this estimate. But if I want to select a specific security group and say, hey, instead of all the folks that can estimate, I just want people, in the following security group to have access to it. Now, they still must have permissions to view estimates. If they don't have permissions to view estimates, the folks that are in that group, then they still can't get into this estimate. But the folks that do have permissions, only the folks in that security group that I select will actually be able to view this estimate going forward. But I like the default that iSite selected for me, so I'll continue on. This last summary page here will show me the options I'm about to use when creating my estimate. And if I want to go ahead and change anything, I can go back and click on any one of those specific steps and then make any changes that I want. So before I create this, actually I'll create this. I want to do one more thing. I want to show you a little bit, something a little bit different on the creation process. So last time we created a plan, I'm going to go ahead and select that. And let's try one that I believe doesn't have a plan already for me. Okay, so this one doesn't have a plan specified, so you'll notice my source page, my source step in this estimate is a little bit different. The source is basically just going to be a blank template, so it's going to start fresh. There's nothing really to clone from. It's already going to start fresh from there. When I'm starting with a new estimate, I have a couple different choices for my subtasks. If I don't want to specify subtask codes, I don't have to. That'll be the default. I can specify a new list of subtask codes if I want. I could choose from a list of subtasks that are already defined for this task, or I could just use all of the defined subtasks if I want to. In this instance, I won't select any. Let me go back to my action page. The experience for creating an estimate is very similar for creating an estimate to complete. The only difference, again, will be in the scenario of my date range area. But I do want to show you one more thing. I'm going to select the task I selected earlier. Now you'll notice it tells me that I already have an estimate in process for this task that I selected. So that's a safety mechanism to make sure that multiple people aren't creating the same estimates for the same task and basically duplicating their work. So it gives me a quick way to get to that estimate. If I wanted to keep it, I can. If not, I can go in there and delete it, then come back and do something else. This one already has one. As does this. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and continue. Now, the one difference now here when I'm creating my estimate is it's only going to allow me to choose a start month and an end month, whereas before I had the options to choose by contract year and whatnot. When I'm choosing my start month, this is basically the effective month that the estimate is being created for. So that means I can have more than one forecast for a specific task. I'm choosing which effective month this forecast is good for. So, for example, if I have a task that I estimate for January through December for my plan, come February, I want to reforecast February through December. So I'll put my effective month as February, and then keep my ending month as December, and it'll create an estimate for February through December. I'll do the same thing in March. I'll do the same thing in April. I'll keep reforecasting my task each month if I need to. And each time I change my effective month, that'll be a new forecast for that specific effective month. So iSite stores separate copies of all these. So when I'm looking at data and reports, I can see what my estimate was in a point in time. One other thing I'll go to here on our action page, plan contract values. Same types of scenarios here with regards to the types of the type of task I'm going to select. I'll select a different task here for that. Now for a for a plan contract value, there is no begin month and end month. Again, if you remember from a few minutes ago, I said plan contract values are just totals. So I'm just selecting the effective month for these totals. Again, these totals can have different versions or different copies based on an effective month, and I'm just choosing the month that these totals are effective for. Everything else along the rest of the wizard will be the same as we saw earlier. So let me go back out to my estimating homepage, and you'll see this is the estimate I just created a couple moments ago. But before we go there, I want to take you to one more place here where I can view all of my estimates. So these are just the estimates that I recently looked at. If I wanted to see all of them that are out there, I could go ahead and click on this View All Estimating Packages. Or on my quick access menu up here, I can choose View Estimates. And that'll bring me to a list here that displays my estimates grouped by task. Now I can change my grouping by clicking these icons here. So if I want to ungroup them and not have them grouped by task, I can choose this ungrouped function, and then it just lists everything down the line here by page. But I kind of like how it's grouped here, so I'll keep that grouping together. And you'll notice if I expand my group here, these are the estimates that are assigned to the specific task that I'm looking at here. There's also a couple other options that are shown here on the filter bar. By default, the filter will show all estimates, but if I want, I can change that filter to show only the estimates that I have authored. So if I don't want to see any estimates from anybody else, I could just simply click on that button there, and then only the estimates that I've worked on will be listed here. I also have the ability to search on the title if I want to. So if I want to put in a specific string, it'll search for that. So if I do that February search there, it'll find that one item here. Also, I can filter by status. So by default, again, all statuses are selected. But if I only want to say, hey, just show me everything that's in draft, it'll go ahead and change my display accordingly. Or if I want to just say, hey, show me what's published, it'll change my display accordingly. If I want to delete estimates, I can only delete estimates that haven't already been published. So for instance, if I change my filter here and just show published estimates and I expand these, you'll notice I can't select any of these estimates because they've already been published. Once they're published, they can no longer be deleted from this screen here. But if they're not published, if they're already in draft mode, I can go ahead and select them for deletion if I want to. And it'll give me a chance to say yes or no to that. Also, from this list menu, here's another way that I can create a new estimate. So again, I was creating it from that homepage link. I can create it from this link here and also from the list page. Okay, so let's go ahead and open our estimate and talk about the estimating tool itself. So the estimate tool basically will control the entering of labor information, labor hours, and ODC dollars. It can, in certain circumstances, enter labor dollars. Typically, that would only be used if I'm entering labor for a subcontractor where we're not automatically calculating the dollars based on the hours that we enter. Also, I can do dollar entry for things such as a fixed fee if I don't want to have a calculation in place for that. But for the most part, it's for labor entry and for ODC entry. So just to talk about the navigation here, everything works off of the ribbon bar. There's also a couple tabs here as well, and we'll go over those in a second. So on the first section of the estimate ribbon bar, you'll see layout function. Now, if I have more than one layout, you'll see this option available to me. If you don't have more than one layout created in your instance of iSite, you won't see this option. But I happen to have a couple different layouts available to me. The master entry view is the basic standard estimate entry function for an estimate. But as you see here, I have other layouts that I have created as well. So I have a basic labor entry layout. I have a read-only view that matches our variance view for the cost report, and I also have a read-only view for the regular cost report. So as you see, when I'm changing these different views, if I'm on a read-only, I don't have the ability to enter data any longer. I'm just viewing what the data would look like um, with how the view is laid out for me. But I'm going to go back to my master entry view. So if you have that layout option available to you, that's what that has to do with. In the estimate area on the estimate ribbon, there's a properties, there's an add component, and attachments functions. Properties is going to take you to the properties of the estimate itself. So you can't change things like the type of estimate or the layout at this point. It's already been created for you. But you can change the task it's assigned to. You can give it a different name if you want. You can update your comments. You can even change a couple of your extended properties like we were looking at before. I also have the ability to modify my starting and ending financial month range. Again, that I believe is permission based as well, so only administrators can do that. And then it does give me a status. So if this estimate was cloned from another estimate, it'll give me a link directly to what that estimate was, and that'll open in a different window. So if I want to refer to it, I can. It'll tell me when it was created, when it was last updated, and then what the status is. On the options page here, these are the options for this specific estimate. The enable historic estimate entry is set to yes. That is a system setting as well. So by default, most users of iSite have that set to no. And all that really means is if I'm entering plan information, it's not going to allow me to enter information for months that have already happened. And it's really just a safety measure. So if I'm in February, it's not going to let me enter data for December of 2016. Also, I can change the numeric format for my display. So if I want to just go dollars only, I can do that. By default, it's dollars and cents. Same thing for publishing. If I want to publish to dollars only, it'll round everything up to the dollar. Otherwise, it just goes with dollars and cents. And then lastly, if I have the ability to control the audience, I can do that here as well. If you remember when I was creating my estimate, it allowed me to set the default audience. So if I want to change it after the fact, I can do that here in the properties. Once I'm done, I can go ahead and hit cancel. Or if I've made any changes, I click Save Properties, and those will be saved. So we talked about subtasks in our task estimate. By default, I chose not to enter any subtasks, so it's just going to create a dummy subtask called plan. But if I did specify subtasks that I wanted to estimate to, and I happen to forget one, I can just simply add one at this point using the add component piece. And we can just call this 001. Subtask 001, give it comments if I want to. And you'll see it added another tab to my list here. I can do 002. Add as many as I want. If I want to delete those components, I can go ahead and go to my component tab. Whatever component is selected, I'll delete it. Get rid of that one again, delete that. And we're back to the way we started. The other thing I showed you here was this attachments. You can store documents related to your estimate right with the estimate itself, which is kind of nice. This just gives you the ability to store things that might support your basis of estimate narrative. Maybe you have vendor quotes that you might want to store with this estimate. It's a nice, convenient way to keep everything together for the estimate that I'm working on. I use this attachments library the same way that I use document libraries, so you can refer to our training video on essentials to learn how to work with the attachments library. Okay, a couple of the actions that I have available. I can submit for approval, I can cancel this estimate, or I can delete it. If I'm canceling this estimate, it really just marks the estimate as canceled and I can no longer do any work with the estimate. If I delete it, obviously the whole estimate itself is permanently deleted from the database. And then submitting for approval, all it basically does is it locks the estimate for any changes, and then it sends a notification to anybody who is authorized to review estimates that they have an estimate in their queue to review. On the data tab here, a couple different functions that I have available. If for whatever reason I wanted to perform a recalculation on any of the calculations that are already stored in my estimate, I can click the recalculate button and it'll recalculate all the tabs and all the sheets on my estimate. I also have the ability to refresh the rates that are stored within the estimate. So it's important to note that when an estimate is created, it takes a snapshot of all of the burden rates that are stored in the central tables for estimating. So things such as my G&A, maybe I have overhead, maybe I have fringe, maybe I have other different burdens, or also the associated labor rates. So anytime I add labor resources to my estimate, every time I add a specific labor resource, it's also going to store the labor rates associated with that resource with my estimate. At some point, those master rate tables may be updated, but they are only updated in the central master table themselves. There's not an automatic update in any of the related estimates that have been created. So if I was under that situation, I would receive a notification saying that the rates are out of date, and then I can just simply click the refresh rates button to bring them back into line to what the master rate tables are. So the nice thing about that is it puts the control in the hands of the estimator to decide whether or not they want to update the rates that are stored with their estimate or leave them as they were. I do have the ability to import data. So if I want to import data, there's a spreadsheet that you can download that will show you the format and the columns that you'll need for the data that you want to estimate. Once you create that file, you would essentially store that file in your file system, choose the file that you want to upload, and then you'll see this option here. If there's any subtask information in the data import that you want to run here, will it create those subtasks for me, yes or no? That's where this option would be. So you'll also see here this file has to be a tab delimited text file, and then only data between the selected dates in my estimate itself will be imported. So if you have dates outside of that range, that data will be ignored. So this is very useful for cases such as maybe I'm doing my labor planning in something like Microsoft Project or Primavera or other resource planning tools. I can continue to use those resource planning tools and then just generate files that can be brought into the costing portion, which is what this is. This will cost all of that labor. So I can bring all that data in rather than having to manually enter it again. I can also export data, same type of scenario here. So what it'll do is it will create a tab delimited file. You'll see it's already downloaded here of any of the data that's already been entered into this estimate. So if I want to do something with it, I can do that. And also, if I have permissions to do this, I can modify the rates that are stored with my estimate here. So you'll see these are all the burdens that I have. These are the labor classes and the effective dates and the rates that are tied to each of the hour types here. So if I wanted to manually change those within this estimate, I could do that. Keep in mind, I'm not updating the central tables that manage all these. I'm only updating the rates that live with this estimate here. So as soon as I do that, I say, well, also, let the estimator know that, okay, hey, your rates are out of date. If I wanted to refresh them, I could certainly do that. It'll wipe out whatever's there and replace them with what's in the central table. So if I made some changes and I forgot what I made and I want to just undo all those and just refresh them with the central table, I can certainly do that at any point in time. Okay, so I also have the ability to export my estimate to Excel. So I can export the entire package itself, or I can export the visual page I'm looking at. So for instance, if I was just exporting this page, you'll notice I'll only export this contract year 9 sheet. But if I was on the period summary, then it would show me the summary for the specific period that I'm looking at. And that's what it would estimate. Otherwise, it would estimate everything. Same thing if I had multiple components. If I was only looking at one specific component and one specific contract year, then if I chose export that page, then only that specific view would be exported. And then if I want to click this view list button, this will bring me back to the list of estimates that I was looking at earlier. You'll also notice on the ribbon bar there's a component tab. This really controls the component that I'm looking at. Now the only component that I have here, or a subtask, is called a plan. If I want to go to the properties of that, I can change it. So if I want to say, my plan, I can do that. And then save it. And you'll see it just updates it there. Same thing if I wanted to add a component, I can add a component from this tab as well. You'll remember that's also on the estimating ribbon piece here. I can delete the component that I'm looking at unless it's the last component left in an estimate. If it's the last component, it's not going to allow me to do that. And then I can also perform a recalculation just on the component that I'm looking at. Lastly, there's a display tab. So I'll go over some of the options here. So we have the ability to show historical data. If I want to show that, I'll be showing, I have the ability to show baseline plans and also actuals. So if I want to show baseline plans, you'll notice it added a whole bunch of different tabs here that relate to all of the contract years that I have in my contract here. And if I go to any of these tabs, if there's any data that can be found, which there likely wouldn't be for this thing here, you'll see it would show all that specific data in my estimate, which is kind of handy if I want to see, what spending was like on previous years. I can do that. Now you'll do notice that there is actually 1 year that does have prior plans. So this contract year 8 already has some prior plans, so I can actually see what was going on there. I can't change any of this, mind you, but it's just there for my reference. I can also show historical actuals, and again, that'll just show any actuals that have been accumulated for any of these contract years for the specific task that I'm looking at. The default is done. Then my different date ranges I can choose here. So right now I'm showing everything by contract year. Okay. If I want to change what this view looks like, I can say, well, instead of contract year, let's view by calendar year. So now this is separating my months by calendar year, 2013 and 14. I can also change it to government fiscal year, contractor fiscal year, and then you can have up to 5 different custom ranges set up. We actually have one set up here called the Wharfie period, and you'll see it basically just reorganizes the data based on the date range modifier that I chose up here. I like contract year, so I'll go ahead and keep it at that. Also, there's a couple different groupings that we have here, and this allows me to group my labor classes or employees. So, for instance, if I have labor classes that are labor subclasses, I should say, that are down to the teammate level. For instance, let's just say I have an engineer, but I have a different engineer subclass for 5 different subcontractors that I use on my contract, right? So I might have engineer 1, right? But engineer 1 for subcontractor 1, engineer 1 for subcontractor 2, and so forth. If I want to group by my labor subclasses, what it'll do is it'll collapse all of those engineer 1s into one line. So I wouldn't see the labor subclass down to the individual subcontractor level. All the data would still be there. I'm just not showing it that way. Same thing for employees. If I'm actually estimating by employee, rather than showing employee names, what it'll do is it will group them into whatever labor class that they are assigned to. So I will see the estimate grouped into labor classes, and all of the employees would be hidden from the view. Again, keep in mind that all the data is still there. This is just for display purposes only. All right, so let's talk about how we can go ahead and enter data. So anytime I'm in a view that I can enter, you'll notice in my labor area here, I'll have a link that I can click on, which will allow me to add resources. Also, any resources that are listed underneath that link have links on them as well, so I can edit the hours for the resources I've already added. Same thing down here for my ODCs. If I can enter an ODC, it will be linked. You'll notice there's a couple ODCs here that aren't linked. That means those are calculated. So I can't enter those at all. So they're just there and calculated behind the scenes. You'll notice some burdens here also don't have links on them. Again, those are calculated. Okay. So the only things that I can enter are things that have links on them. All right. So let's talk about how we add labor to our estimate. So anytime you see one of these little icons here next to a labor title, then that shows you where you can add labor to that specific title. So if I want to add some resources to this direct labor productive prime, I just simply click on that, and now that'll show me all the labor classes and subclasses and employees that have already been added. Keep in mind, I can go ahead and mix and match those if I want. I can add labor subclasses, I can add employees, whatever I want can all be mixed and matched within the same labor area. But I'll go ahead and add a couple more labor classes. So I'll choose a couple of these here. You'll notice anything that's listed in pink, those are showing you that there's labor classes defined, but there's no available rates for that labor class. So it's not going to allow you to select those labor classes. When you see something like that, you should talk to your administrators, and if you need to select one of those labor classes for estimating, then you should tell them to go ahead and add rates to iSite so that you can perform that estimating. So I selected 2 more labor classes. I'll go ahead and add those. Now, if I want to go ahead and enter labor for any of these, I can go ahead and click on any of these links, and it'll get me to where I need to be. Or I can just go ahead and go back to my estimate display, and you'll see that I've added them here. Now, if I click on the link here, it will also bring me to the editor. So I'll go ahead and do that. So now we're in the labor editor itself. When I'm entering labor, I can enter either by hours or by FTE. If I'm entering by FTE, it's going to calculate the number of hours that is specified by the FTE. So each of my financial months has working hours or productive hours assigned to it. So if I went across the line here and said, yeah, I just want 1 FTE all the way across, I should have 160, 160, 160, 232, and so forth all the way across. If I save and close, this is the AE3. You'll notice AE3 has 160, 160, 160, 232, and so forth. Going back there, if I want to just enter hours, I could do that as well. So if I just say, well, I'm going to have 100 hours for all these. Save it. Then I'll obviously go ahead and put in 100 hours for me. We also have some tools that make entry a little bit easier. So as you saw, I was typing 100 into each of those boxes here. Well, I do have the ability to distribute amounts to my boxes. So if I want, I can go ahead and distribute. Say I want to distribute 100 to all of those boxes. Go ahead and hit OK. It'll put 100 in there for me. There's also a couple different algorithms here that I can use. So let's just say I have 10,000 hours to work with, right? And I just want to spread them all evenly to each of those boxes. I can do that. It'll do the calculations for me and spread them for me. I also have a couple different algorithms here as well. So let's just say I have that same 10,000 hours, and I say, well, I'm going to start at 0, but then I'm going to end on a high note. So it's going to, we're basically going to be ramping up. Or maybe I'm not going to start at 0, but I want to start low and then high. Or I can start low, go high, and then go back low, high to low, and high to 0. Any one of these, it'll basically perform an algorithm to distribute those numbers for me. So if I have 10,000 hours to distribute on a low to high basis, let's see what that does. it'll just go ahead and calculate that for me. Started low, ended high. Same thing works for FTEs. So if I want to go ahead and say, well, I just want 1.5, let's say 1.25 FTEs across all of them. Go ahead and do that. Just makes entry a little bit easier. Now, if I want to just go ahead and delete this resource, I can go ahead and do that just by clicking this delete button, and that labor resource will no longer be assigned to this estimate. Also, for some reason, if I want to go ahead and clear out all the amounts, I can click on that, and it resets everything to 0. But let's go ahead and put 1.25 FTEs there again, and save it and close it. Now you notice I'm entering hours here, but when I scroll down here to my dollars section, let's see, labor dollars, where are they? Labor, cost, there they are, right. The dollars are already calculated for me, so I just entered in my hours, and the dollars are already calculated for me. You'll also notice any related burdens would be calculated too. So none of these had any program support, but there was some labor overhead for the prime. There was some regular overhead for the prime. There was likely some G&A as well on there. So some fee. All that's calculated for me. So I'm just entering my labor hours, and it's doing the rest of the calculations for me. If I want to see all that rolled up, same thing, just showing totals. If I had multiple years, it would show a column for every year and then a total column and so forth. So it's really as simple as that to add data into my estimate. When I'm entering labor, when I'm entering my ODCs, it's very similar to entering labor. So I can go into my ODC. Now I'm not entering by hours and FTEs because I'm not dealing with labor. I'm just entering dollar amounts. But let's just say if I had $1,000 to spend every month, I want to copy that to all of them. I could save it. Now under this travel, I have that all set up for me. So basically, I'm just building up my estimate. Once I'm done building my estimate, I've added all my labor. I've entered all my ODCs that make sense for this specific estimate. Then I can go ahead and submit that estimate for approval, and then somebody will review that estimate for accuracy. Before I do that, I do want to show you one more thing on this tool, which is kind of neat. So we've also, when the estimate templates were set up, some totals were also created as well. So whenever I'm entering data here, the totals that are defined for this specific estimate are automatically updated and reflected for me as well. So it shows my total ODCs that were entered for the specific for the specific month that I'm looking at, my total labor and so forth. All those totals are all updated for me. So that's pretty much it for entering data. Once I'm done entering, I can go ahead and submit for approval. That's going to say yes, give me yes or no if I want to do it. And basically what it's going to do, it's going to send out emails to whoever is authorized to review those estimates and allow me to either approve it or reject it. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and cover that topic. So if I want to review estimates, you'll notice now on my estimating homepage here, there's one package listed. That's the one I just submitted. If I click on this link, basically what it's going to do, it's going to take me to my inbox. And if there's any estimates waiting for review in my inbox, they'll be listed here. So from here, it's going to show me the estimate. Now, obviously, I can't change any of this data here. This is all read-only, so I'm only just looking to see if this is accurate or not, if I have everything covered or not. So I could either approve it or I could reject it at this point. If I reject it, I'm required to give a comment as to why I rejected it. Otherwise, I can just approve it. And then once I approve it, now that estimate will move to the next stage, which will be it's ready for publishing. So what that means is estimates in iSite, be that time phase baseline plan or a forecast or plan contract values, None of those are considered official, and none of those are available for viewing in the financials area until they're published. So basically, we're working on all these estimates in one area of iSite, so it doesn't reflect or change anything in our financials area until those numbers are approved and published. So the one estimate I was just working on, which is this demo 19, is sitting here waiting for me. Basically, I can publish or I can reject it. So even as a publisher, I have the ability to reject an estimate. So this is the last chance that I have to say, okay, there's something wrong here. If I reject it, it goes all the way back to the author. It puts it in a rejected status. I will have to give a comment as to why it's rejected. And then I can go ahead and make any changes and go ahead and submit it for approval again, just like I just did. But if I want to go ahead and publish it, I can go ahead and publish it. And then once I'm done with that, those numbers are now visible as planned values in my financials area. And that basically covers the estimating tool. So we covered how to create an estimate. We covered the estimate list. We covered how to review estimates, and we covered publishing. Now there are a couple other topics I do want to talk about. We do have one report available at this point for estimates. This will show you any tasks that have effective estimates to complete. Basically, all that's doing is just showing you the list of tasks that have forecasts created for them through a specific financial month. So it's a good way to let your task managers know, hey, I'm missing a forecast for the following tasks. So it's a nice way to show everything in one place. And then lastly, on our utilities page, there's a couple of utilities that are available to admins only. The first one is the ability to update estimate rates. So I showed you the ability to update rates within the estimate itself. But if I wanted, as an administrator, to force rate changes to all of my estimates, then I could go ahead and do that. It's best to only do that for things that are in draft, awaiting review, anything that's not published. If you have to update rates that are already published, it's best that those estimates are then republished because that data is already considered finalized. But there is the ability to do that if you needed it. So again, that's just a way to force rate changes down to the estimates rather than allowing the estimator to make those changes. I can also update FTE hours. So in certain circumstances, and these are very rare, but we created a tool for those instances because they have happened in the past. If a financial calendar was set up wrong and the wrong productive hours were specified for financial months, or maybe even financial month dates changed or whatnot. Well, obviously, if the productive hours change, then the value of an FTE would also change. So when I'm entering FTEs, I'm also entering the hours. So let's say, for instance, I have a financial month that was defined for 160 hours, but we found later that no, it should have been 160, it should have been 168 hours. Well, any estimates that were already created that were done by FTEs were assuming the old 160-hour calculation, because those calculations are made at that point in time. So in those instances, if we need to go ahead and update all of our estimates with the new values of what that FTE should be, I can go ahead and use this tool to do so. And again, it's best to only do things that haven't already been published. Last thing is the ability to unlock estimates. So once an estimate is submitted for approval, the estimate's locked. It can't be changed any longer, and it's locked all the way up until it's published. Once it's published, it can't be unlocked at all at that point. But if it's submitted for approval, or if it's in a rejected status or an approved status, at any point in time, if you need to, for some reason, unlock that record, and make some changes, you can do so using this unlock utility. And this will just show you any of the estimates that meet any of the status codes that allow for unlocking. And that there covers the estimating module within iSite. Hopefully this will give you all the information that you need to perform estimating efficiently and easily within the iSite tool.